Good. I think good to see those who have joined. Thank you so much for those who have joined, and it gives me pleasure today to bring on board one great gentleman by the name Naftal Ndege. Uh, Naftal is a man who really believes in employee engagement right from his blood, and therefore. The topic he's going to speak about is quite a great and important topic if there is any organization that is looking forward to growth. The truth is that you can't have people who are disengaged and then expect returns. I think that's not possible. Therefore, it's an area we need to explore. It's an area we need to dig deeper. It's an area we need to come up with strategies on how to deal with it, because if it becomes the priority, then everything else will fall in place. And therefore, I do not want to dilute what our faculty member, Mr. Naftal, has prepared, but I just want us to dig deeper. And I want to request that we use the platform we have for comments. Let's put in all questions we want to put in, then we will dive in. I'm happy to see our faculty member, Mr. Dominic, around, who will be chipping in whenever possible to add in. I can see one, Mr. Njiru, around. Thank you so much. You will be able to chip in whenever you feel like. So join me, team, in welcoming Mr. Naftal on stage. Thank you so much, Naftal. The stage is yours. You can proceed and feel free.
A very good evening to you, team, and I hope I am audible. Greg, thank you so much for the introduction. I am honored this evening to, of course, be the faculty that is going to be taking you through the employee engagement topic. Now, I want this discussion to be engaging. I want us to get involved because the topic itself is self-defining. It is employee engagement. Let it be an engagement so that we can get to demystify this topic and get to learn from one another. I'm going to be taking you through a number of things that we need to know in terms of employee engagement. And I will request that we be we participate. I'm going to be involving you in this discussion so that we make it as lively as we possibly can. And therefore, I would want to request you to share your thoughts on what you think employee engagement is. I do not know, Greg, if we have a quorum that therefore can start chatting on the chat by defining what their thoughts are on what they think employee engagement is.
Yes, the chat is open, and they can feel free to write in, type in. We will be picking that as we move on.
Absolutely great. And there is no wrong answer in terms of what you think employee engagement is. So as long as your definition contains something to do with an employee's emotions, something to do with how connected they are with their employer or the organization, or how connected they are with their team, or how connected they are with their job. then that is a perfect answer or a perfect definition. But for purposes of this engagement, I would want you to have a look at this definition that is appearing on your screens. Employee engagement simply is the strength of the mental and emotional connection that employees feel towards the organization that they work for, the team that they work with, and the work that they do. Remember that it is all about how emotionally invested employees are in their work and the organization's goals. One thing that we all need to understand is that employee engagement affects just about every aspect of the organization. You can talk about profitability, you can talk about revenues, you can talk about customer experience, talk about employee turnover, team dynamics, etc. What we need to understand is that employees that feel connected to the organization have been known to work hard, they have been known to stay long, they have also been known to motivate others in the workplace to achieve greater results. Now, one thing you also need to know is that out here there is a lot of information about how to improve employee engagement. But the question that you need to ask yourself is, are all these initiatives, all this information that is being bandied out here, how relevant is this information to your organization? Now, we have talked about employee engagement being the strength of the mental and emotional connection that employees feel towards the organization. Now, the question we are asking ourselves this evening is, what do engaged employees display in their usual discharge of their duties in a work environment? How do we define, or how do we know that an employee is engaged? Now, there is a lot of research that has gone out there. And when doing this research, employee engagement has been found to hinge on a number of factors. Now, these factors have been classified into three. We are talking about the work engagement, we are talking about the team engagement, and the organization engagement. On work engagement, we are asking ourselves, as an employee, how are you connected to the work that you're doing? On team engagement, we are asking ourselves, how connected do you feel to your immediate co-workers or your team members? And on the organizational engagement element, we are asking ourselves, how connected are we to the organization as a whole? Now, what you can see on your screen is what we can call the employee engagement levels. One thing that I have realized is that this is a very common image, and it portrays the various engagement levels of employees in our organizations. Now, if you look at this slide, forget about the numbers. It is just a depiction of what we are going to define as we move forward. We have said that employee engagement measures how employees feel about the organization. We have also included the fact that it also measures how they feel about the team that they work with and the work that they do. Now, based on the perceptions that they have to these three critical elements of an organization, employees are categorized into three main subcategories with respect to employee engagement. Now, we have engaged employees, we have employees that are not engaged, and we also have employees that are actively disengaged. So, how do we define these various levels? Who is an engaged employee? What you can see on your screen is there is a boat. You can call it a yacht, you can call it a ship, and it has men trying to row the boat, and they have been positioned on different locations. We have those that are depicted by the color blue. We have those depicted by the orange color and those depicted by the red color. Now, those that are depicted by the blue color represent a section of the employees that are engaged. Who is an engaged employee? Now, engaged employees are characterized by having very favorable opinions of their places of work. They work very well with a lot of passion, and they feel a very profound connection to their company. These are what you can loosely call the brand advocates. They speak highly of their company, not even within the organization itself, but even to the friends outside the organization. They also encourage other people around them, including fellow employees and people outside the organization, to do their best in terms of serving the organization. And then we have the other category here called the not engaged, depicted by the orange color or the 52%. These are employees that are essentially checked out. All right, they have they are there, they are 50-50, they are sleepwalking through their workday. They are putting in time, but the energy levels and passion is not there. All right. And then lastly, we have this last cadre of employees that is the 19% depicted by color red, which is the disengaged employees. They have a very negative opinion of um, the work and the workplace. They are disconnected with the organization, both the mission and the vision of the organization. These are the type of employees that you work with who ask you, when they see you working very hard, they will ask you, kwani kazi ni ya babako? Or they will ask you, why are you so committed to this organization? So they are there, they appear at work, but their minds and their thoughts, they are psychologically disconnected from the whole setup. And therefore, these are the major levels of engagement that we have. Now, other scholars have broken this down, not necessarily into engaged, not engaged, and actively disengaged, but others have broken it down to the highly engaged, the moderately engaged, the barely engaged, and the disengaged levels. And therefore, from the definitions, it is easy for you to understand where the employees in your organization lie. Now, moving along, there has been a lot of misconceptions in terms of defining employee engagement in relation to other aspects of the organization or other facets of the organization. Now, there are terms that have been used interchangeably. And this, if you look at it, does not really define what employee engagement is. At times, people talk about happiness and they use it instead of engagement. There are times when others will use employee satisfaction instead of engagement. And lastly, there are people who will use employee well being. Now, while you may find it easy to interchangeably use these terms to refer to employee engagement, it should not be lost on you that these terms do not necessarily mean employee engagement. Let us start with employee happiness. Employee happiness is indeed very important, but employee happiness um, is not the same as employee engagement. It says nothing about how invested employees are in the company, nor how hard they are working on behalf of the organization's mission. Now, happiness is short term and rapidly changing measurement. It is a rapidly changing measurement. An example of this would be, as an employee, you could be happy to have gotten a pay rise momentarily, but that happiness will soon wane off. Um, but employee engagement is deep. It is a deeper connection that you have, and it does not go off quite easily. Um, Employee engagement is not employee satisfaction. Employee satisfaction, as we know it, can only be measured at a surface level. And an employee who is satisfied may not be engaged. It is not equal to employee engagement. On general terms, satisfied employees will not take the steps to go above and beyond. They are just usually people who stick around and are not driven to, go the extra mile. And lastly, employee engagement is not employee well-being, because employee well-being evaluates many areas of employees' life. And therefore, we should always be careful, even when we are using these terms, to define how the organization is faring, not to confuse these terms with employee engagement. Now, we keep singing employee engagement, employee engagement. Now, the question that we therefore need to ask ourselves is, why is employee engagement is important? What is the business case um, for employee engagement? You know, why do we need employee engagement? Um, in recent years, it has been realized by progressive organizations that employees are a very critical element. We have even defined them as assets in an organization, and therefore, a different look into how employees are connecting with their work, with their organization, with their teams is very critical. And there are strategies that have been put forth to ensure that all employees or employees within specific directorates are made to feel at home within the organizations. And it is for this reason that the concept of employee engagement has taken root. Now, talent minded organizations know that the people that work for them are their assets. And it is important, therefore, to treat them well so that there can be the value that is desired out of them. So, what you see these days is that it has become increasingly important for organizations to grasp the core principles of employee engagement, understanding what drives engagement and how to effectively measure it is in itself a very crucial element. because it leads to cultivating a work environment where engagement is not only exists but also significantly contributes to the company's success. So what we are saying is that an engaged employee is a productive employee, and therefore a productive employee simply translates to a successful organization. What are the benefits of employee engagement? I'm sure you all know what benefits can be accrued through employee engagement strategies. They are what you can see from your naked eye. We will have increased employee productivity, you will have a higher employee retention, customer satisfaction will shoot through the ceiling, you won't be having employees that are absent from work, there will be greater trust in leadership, and of course, there will also be a stronger employer brand because the employees who are engaged, they will become vocal advocates and they will recommend your workplace. They will talk positively about the workplace and therefore automatically become advocates of the organization. What are the top drivers of employee engagement? First of all, when we talk about drivers, what are we making reference to? These are items that have a very huge impact on employee engagement outcomes. And all these drivers will impact engagement. The key here is to make sure that you identify and act on these drivers. Specific drivers we are talking about here that will make the biggest difference in the organization. And out of that, implement strategic employee engagement strategies that will support those drivers. We are talking about you being content that your job allows you to utilize your strengths fully, that you trust your senior leaders to lead the company to future success, that you believe the organization will be successful in the future, you find your job interesting, etc., etc. These 10 top drivers are crucial in terms of driving employee engagement in the workplace. An employee will be engaged when they know that, for instance, their job allows them to utilize their strengths, that they are not confined in a space that they are not able to utilize that which they know. An employee will become engaged if they know that the organization will be successful in future, for instance. If an employee knows and understands that their opinion counts in the workplace, they will be engaged, etc., etc. So those are the top 10 drivers of employee engagement. They are not the only drivers of employee engagement, but they are classified as the top 10. So out of these top 10 drivers of employee engagement, there are three key themes that therefore come out very strongly, and they are the powerful indicators of employee engagement. Now, the first theme that comes out here very strongly is a motivating workplace. If you're working in a motivating workplace and you find that your job is not challenging you enough, you will not be engaged. Employees want to own their tasks, these tasks that use their strengths and have access to opportunities. If they realize that this in itself renders itself to them in their workplace, they will be absolutely engaged. The second theme that comes out very clearly is inspiring team and leaders. You are in a workplace that has a very inspiring team, a very vibrant team. You are prone to be engaged. If your leaders are inspiring in equal measure, you are bound to be engaged. And lastly, commitment to the organization. Employees want to work for organizations that have a strategy to build success. If this is lacking in your organization, chances are that you are bound to be disengaged, or your engagement levels are bound to plummet down. Now, the question that we are asking ourselves, therefore, now that we have sung the employee engagement song so long, is who drives employee engagement in an organization? Whose responsibility is it? I'm sure in the various workplaces that we are, this question comes up a lot. There is what is called shift blaming. It's called a blame game. People are blaming the other party for them not being responsible in terms of driving employee engagement. Now, to set the record straight, every person in the organization has an impact and they have a role on the quality of the relationships that they build, their approach to the teamwork, and the general attitudes they bring to the workplace. It's very important to learn where you fall and the role that you play. So we'll start with the senior leaders or the leadership. What is the role of leadership in employee engagement? Number one, you need to know that as a leader, if you are one, that employee engagement is bestowed upon you because you are the advocate, you are the influential campaigner, and the top promoter of an engaged workplace. That is the key role of the senior leaders. They model desired behaviors, they cast vision and mood strategies for engagement, they support and prioritize investments in employee engagement initiatives, and their last key role is they communicate thoughtfully issues to do with staff engagement. HR, what is your role? What role do you play? I would say that HR is very critical in driving employee engagement. In other words, it is the responsibility of HR to put all the ducks in a row. Our ducks here being the senior leaders, the managers, and the employees, and any other stakeholder within the organization. Why is HR very critical? Because the role of HR is aligning the various functions of the organization and bringing out accountability. You play a critical role in choosing the processes and tools that are to be used in the drive towards a completely engaged organization. And it is also your role to support and develop the managers and teams through coaching, through capacity building exercise, etc. What is the role of managers? Now, most employees spend most of their time with managers, and therefore the level of interaction between the managers and the employees is very high, more than anyone else. And therefore, managers should create an environment where the employee or the individual can thrive and truly be engaged while championing the organization's success. The manager plays a very critical role in building good relationships with each employee. That is by creating a safe space. The managers review and discuss or act on team engagement results. They promote accountability for progress. They are the champions of organization-wide engagement priorities, and they help employees develop and grow through driving employee engagement behaviors. And lastly, we have the employees. As an employee, when we said that everyone plays a role, we meant all employees. We are talking about management, senior leadership, we are talking about supervisors, everybody. And therefore, employees are the organization's voice on the front lines in terms of employee experience. There is no team that can rally or voice employee engagement more than the employees. It is going to be very visible in terms of failure of employee engagement initiatives through employees. It is easy to know that that there is no engagement through employees, and therefore employees carry a very crucial burden in terms of employee engagement, and therefore they provide honest feedback. It is on the basis of the feedback of the employees that engagement initiatives are mooted. They brainstorm solutions to address their concerns, because they are the ones who know what is happening on the ground. And lastly, they hold up their end of the bargain when it comes to entire team commitments. Now, that, my fellow colleagues, shows you the role that each member or each party in the organization plays in terms of employee engagement. Know your role. If you are a senior leader, know the role that you're playing. If you are in the HR, know the role that you're playing. And so should you know the role you're playing when you're a manager and if you're an employee. Um, what are the employee engagement best practices? By best practices, what are we talking about? The best practices here we are talking about are that you need to look at employee engagement in the context of its success. How are you going to execute employee engagement strategies and have it successful? Number one, it is important for you to affirm the areas of strength. Most of the time we are looking at bringing in new things. We are looking at bringing in the much needed change for us to drive employee engagement. And yet we forget the small wins that we already have within the setup. So prioritize reaffirming these strengths. There are areas of strengths that you have that can be foundational for you to build on in order for you to realize that much desired great level of employee engagement. Secondly, tie your engagement efforts to business outcomes. We are talking about business or employee engagement being connected to business success. So tie all the engagement efforts, all the strategies to business outcomes. You need everyone on board to make your engagement plan a success. You need to connect your engagement efforts to tangible business results. Now, I have grayed out tangible business results because it is important for you to understand the relationship there is between a highly engaged team and business results. If you are to achieve tangible and noteworthy business results, then you need to tie these business results to every engagement effort that you come up with in your organization. You need to tie it with results such as the turnover rates. You are looking at your sales numbers, you're looking at your customer satisfaction levels, you're looking at all those, the financial performance, and much more. When leaders and employees see the impact of engagement, they are more likely to be invested in the process of engagement. And then lastly, make engagement a strategy and not activity. You will agree with me that any strategic intent of the organization sees outcomes in many years to come, and therefore gradually it becomes embedded into the bloodstream of the organization. And therefore we are saying, do not view employee engagement as an activity that we are doing today and get it over with. Not at all. On the contrary, it should be sewn into the fabric of the strategic direction of the company. If you want to move the needle on engagement, it must be a continuous strategy. You need to keep doing it. It shouldn't be a one-off project that you set and forget. Because if that's your motivation there, then you are completely bound to fail. How do we measure employee engagement? What are the basic tenets of measurement of employee engagement? Because how do you know what you're going to work on in terms of improvement for you to have an engaged workforce, an engaged environment? Before improving this aspect of employee engagement, it is very important for you to know where you stand. That is, what is your status quo? Who are you now in terms of employee engagement? And one of the most efficient ways to gain an understanding of this is through what we all know called employee engagement surveys. Now, surveys are very important. As you grow your understanding of the employee life cycle, it's very important that you will also want to uncover group and dynamic and demographic dynamics that are impacting employee engagement. We are talking about organization-wide dynamics. You're talking about groups and teams. You're talking about individuals. Now, how do you do this? If you're talking about organization-wide approach, use a company-wide employee engagement survey to establish what is called a baseline that will help you understand the current situation in terms of employee engagement at your workplace. Secondly, within your groups or teams, once you have the organizational data, you can break it down. You can slice it into teams and groups to understand the nuances. We call them nuances of engagement in your organization. And then lastly, among individuals, get surveys shouldn't only be for groups. It shouldn't be for teams. It should not only be a tool in your bag for measuring employee engagement. Don't use surveys alone. Have one-on-one sit downs with the employees. Get feedback from the employees. Engage them one-on-one. Recognize their input in terms of what their feelings are towards the organization and towards the job and towards the teams and the leaders that they work with. How do you develop a measurement strategy? So after you have had a better understanding of who the survey will reach, identify the end goal. Why are you doing this? Or what are you hoping to achieve? Decide on the impacts you want the survey to have and work backward from there. The crucial questions that you need to therefore ask yourself is, number one, who will be accountable for the following up on the results, who will be acting up on these results, and lastly, what does that action look like? Progressive minds call it the picture of success. Now, what are the valuable surveys for measuring employee engagement? Now, we are looking at three of them right now. We have the uh, Pulse surveys, we have the employee and life cycle surveys, and we also have the employee engagement surveys. Now, what is a Pulse survey? Um, Pulse surveys are naturally designed to help organizations gather real-time feedback on any topic. Just as the word itself suggests, they are, they are, it's a pulse, it's real time. And therefore, you can use this survey, especially during times of transition. That is, during times of an acquisition or a merger, when your mission, you're mooting a mission to focus on changes that are within the organization, or you are looking at changes in the organizational leadership caucus, that is the leadership team. You can use Pulse surveys to get feedback that will therefore help you come up with strategies that will help you in achieving your employee engagement goal. Employee life cycles. We all know what life cycle entails. We are talking about new hires. We are talking about um, stay surveys, like how long employees have stayed within the organization. And we are talking about exit surveys. You can do new hire surveys by asking questions such as, what do new employees think about the workplace that they have just joined? What was their perception when they joined the organization? Um, what's their outlook of the future in regards the organization? You can also do stay surveys. You could ask employees, for instance, why are you still working in this organization? Um, what possibly could drive them to leave the organization, and such questions. Or you can do exit surveys by asking these employees that are leaving the organizations questions such as, why are you leaving? What is your motivation to leave the organization? And this feedback will therefore be crucial in helping you understand what you need to do in terms of strategizing tangible employee engagement initiatives or strategies. So after you have done this survey, so what next? What are we moving to? It's important to know that if you do not act on the survey results that you have gotten, that exercise is as good as dead. You need to act on these results. And how do you do this? You need to utilize these results, because it is only by utilizing these results that you will realize what we have just mentioned called the picture of success. Your employee engagement communication strategy will help your organization continually evaluate, discuss, and adjust how you are approaching the employee experience. Action planning is also very important. It should not be overwhelming or limited to the HR only. I have experienced a situation where the action planning is limited to the HR alone, forgetting that the feedback that was gotten that you are looking at right now in form of results did not come from HR. While they were critical in giving their feedback, it came from the whole company. And therefore, it's about fostering a culture of active listening and meaningful response across the organization. There are challenges in action planning, like, for instance, limited time and resources and prioritization, lack of leader and manager buy in, and poor communication. These are classic examples of why most action plans do not take off. You realize as HR that you are stuck with a survey result, which you are supposed to come up with action plans, which will therefore inform what needs to be done and after how long and who is responsible for that. Remember, you are not working in isolation. So you will have to eat into people's times. And the people we are talking about here are business leaders. You're talking about line managers. You're talking about other employees. You're talking about a manager who has to be standing somewhere in the factory and ensuring that production is ongoing, and therefore that to them is their priority. Your survey comes second, and therefore they will not give you the support that it requires. And then you lack the leader buy-in. You did not engage the managers, you did not engage the leaders, and therefore you do not have that support. The buy-in is not there. You are bound to fail in terms of actualizing the survey results. And then lastly, poor communication, of course, is a very crucial element in terms of making or breaking the outcome of a survey. How do we create an employee engagement action plan? What is an action plan in the first place? An action plan is a way or a strategy that will help you to achieve tangible results that will impact the employee engagement journey. Now, how do we create an action plan? An engagement strategy or an engagement survey, for this matter, is not cannot be worked on if we do not have a clear and effective action plan. Creating an effective employee action plan is a very vital step in transforming the workplace dynamics. It is where you, as the driver of the engagement activity, will identify and discuss the key drivers of engagement within your organization to overcome the challenges that are challenge of empowering people to drive action planning. Remember, at the introductory stage of this presentation, we said all employees are critical elements in terms of driving employee engagement. And therefore, to overcome the challenge of you not realizing the desired results of an employee engagement strategy, you need to involve the key stakeholders in the organization. How do you do this? Engage these employees, engage these managers, empower your teams to help you in terms of driving these results. Navigate the vast expanse of employee feedback. Look at the employee feedback. Dive deep and try to understand exactly the language that the employees are presenting their concerns to you. Discover actionable insights. While it is important for you to look at the picture of success, it is not going to be realized if you do not have actionable insights. And then lastly, you develop a plan to keep everyone on course for next level engagement. Remember, it is like a wave. You need to have it established on a multiple plethora of fronts. You are involving the management, you are involving the employees, you are basically, as we said, as HR, you are putting your ducks in line and ensuring that every detail in terms of the employee engagement feedback is consumed and actionable insights are put forth. Now, key to realizing these action plans is number one, you need to analyze the data. You need to decode the employee feedback. That is the first step. You make sense of your survey results. Your goal here is to help your leaders and managers analyze this result in a proper way. And by this, you need to unearth the insights, that is, unravel these insights. You need to empower managers, and you also need to go beyond the score. Go beyond the score. Ask yourself, if this score depicts this kind of picture, what insights can we bring about to create a different picture altogether? Give power to the managers, share the data clearly, that is in a way that they understand. Drive what is called team-led change through the managers. Let them do that for you. And by so doing, you will be decoding and analyzing the employee feedback in the correct manner. Number two, focus areas. Choosing your guiding stars. How do you choose your guiding stars? Number one, you prioritize strategically. Number two, you loop in the leaders that you work with. And lastly, you focus on impact. Ask yourself, if this is the action plan that we are laying out, what impact will it bring? Elevate areas with the most potential to boost employee engagement. Ask yourself, what are the low-lying fruits that then we can just grab and bring a total change or a difference in our employee engagement levels? Then team discussion, encourage team discussion. Collaborate with your crew, collaborate with all the stakeholders. Effective action planning cannot happen in a vacuum. We need to remember that. You need to involve employees in the process. You need to have them be part of the process. Help them understand their feedback is being taken seriously. You need to tap team intelligence. You need to dive deeper. You need to get creative. By involving the employees and giving them the assurance that their feedback is being actioned and that the change that they desire is in the pipeline, you are giving them reason to believe in you. And therefore, that should be the driving factor in you making sure that you realize the outcomes of the feedback that they have given. Execution plan, you should map out your mission. What is your mission? Have you drawn out your roadmap? Accountability, have you ensured accountability? Have you assigned responsibilities and deadlines for measurable impacts? Have you checked alignment? Do these strategies align with your business goals? Or are you just doing them because it is the in thing? You need to ask yourself such crucial questions. And then lastly, reminders and reinforcement. You need to maintain your trajectory. Keep the dialogue open as always. Check in with the managers and remember to do what is called continuous evolving. You need to evolve continuously. We have said at some point in this discussion that be intentional about making employee engagement a strategy. Move it into the strategy of the organization as opposed to just having it as an activity. while this is the end of the presentation in terms of this first discussion on employee engagement, there are other aspects that we have left out, and I'm going to leave this to you to go and brainstorm. Try to find out the latest trends that there are in terms of employee engagement. Try to also look into initiatives that have been brought about that can help you and the organization in managing the employee engagement process. I am certain that we have softwares that help in terms of employee engagement. And I believe, Mr. Greg, this is something that could probably be woven into the software that you have created. And therefore, I leave it to you to go and do more research in terms of the trends, in terms of the softwares that can help us as organizations, and especially as HR managers and HR players and practitioners in this field to achieve great employee engagement within our organizations. And with those very many remarks, I think I am about to hit the 1 hour mark, which is the time provision for this presentation. Thank you so much. Over to you, Greg.
Wow. Mr. Naftal, thank you so much. You've done justice to this subject, and I just want to request the members who are on backstage to just appreciate Mr. Naftal with a clap of applause. I mean, you've done well. You've done well, and I'm proud of you, Naftal. Looking at the way you've moved from the introduction all the way to the end, you've literally covered a subject that universities, colleges will cover in a semester or 2 semesters. But within an hour, you've compressed it in such a manner that if someone was to pick it up and seriously look at it line by line, move into execution, I think they will do justice to the organization. Allow me to request Dominic to make a point before we carry on. If there are any questions, put them on the comments so that Mr. Naftal can be able to take them in. Thank you so much, Nathan, for the comments you've been capturing. Dominic, please, the floor is yours. Thank you. Dominic, you can go.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me, Greg.
Yes, I can.
The bird has done some justice to this topic tonight about employee engagement. And employee engagement is one, as the bird has just mentioned, Mr. Naftal Ndege, that it is not one day activity, but it is a long run kind of a long run activity. One key result that you are able to get from good employee engagement is increased productivity. And there's a saying that goes, or maybe a quote, if you look after your internal customers, you don't have to worry about the external customers. And who are your internal customers? Are your internal customers are your employees, if you can put them into some context. And therefore, it will be very easy to deal with your internal employees who will now go out there and take care of your customers. And your customers will always remain to be the revenue streaming channel. Uh, just to add on, when we are trying to do some employee engagement, there are some tools that we can be able to employ and get to see where we are in terms of measuring and getting to know where are we in terms of engagement. And one of these tools that I've used in my current place of work is what we call employee net promoter score. This is a similar score to the one that is used by people in the marketing just to measure how their customers can be able to recommend their product to their colleagues or maybe to their friends. And therefore, we employ the same context or maybe scope just to measure and see how our employees likely to recommend or maybe calling their colleagues, their family members to consider where they are currently working as also a good employer. And therefore, this survey is very short, just a survey with about 2 questions, whereby the first question is you ask the employees to rate you between on a scale of 1 to 10, whereby from there you are able to group them and get to know where you are. And those who are able, who will the ones from this scale of 0 to 10, 0 being the least likelihood to recommend, and the 10 is the highly likelihood to recommend their colleagues or maybe their friends. Then you can group your score or maybe your results in this way, whereby 0 to 6, we call them the detractors. These employees are dissatisfied and they are very unhappy with their company. They might actively criticize it, and actually they pose a risk to the organization as they are unhappy employees who may spread negative sentiments both internally and externally. Then we have a very thin margin there of those who are between 7 and 8, and we call them passive or neutral. They are somewhere in between. They don't know whether they recommend or not to recommend. Yes, they are moderately satisfied, but they are not actively engaged, or they are not so enthusiastic about your company or maybe the organization. And again, while they may not actively harm the company, they can also contribute. Uh, they may not contribute significantly to its growth in terms of productivity or maybe promote it. But here we have the other category of the promoters who are giving you a score of between 9 and 10. These employees are highly satisfied and they will be loyal to your organizations. They will actually promote it. They'll be your brand ambassadors. They'll mention you. They'll make very good positive comments about your brand, and they may even make you uh, attract potential talent. So I found this kind of a score really helpful on how to go about doing an engagement survey and get to know. Now from that survey, there's a way you proceed to get the percentage. You get the percentage of the promoters and you get the percentage of the detractors who gave you between 0 and 6, then the one who gave you 9 and 10. Then you just subtract from the percentage of the promoters, you subtract the percentage of the detractors. Say the promoters are about 70%, detractors are about 20%, then your employee net promoter score is 50%. And therefore, after you get that score, this places you in a better position to know how are you going to actually set some targets and say Perhaps by the end of this year, we want our engagement employee net promoter score to move upwards by 10% or maybe 20% to say to 80%. Then how do you go about that? It's now where the second question comes in. You want to engage the employees and make them do some comments and tell you, why did you give me a score of 9? Why did you give me a score of 10? If you give me a score of 10 and you tell me perhaps these are the things you are doing right, they are what Naftal is calling them the strength. You need to keep them up. You don't need to drop them. You continue giving them, you keep those good things you are doing. Then on the other end, if you look at the way we categorize the scores, 9 to 10, 7 and 8, then 0 to 6. It's very wide. So it gives you with a very wide range of people who are going to give you feedback, most probably on how you are going to. They'll actually highlight, we are not happy about this. We want this. We want this. We want that. We want this. So those ones become your action points, and actually it makes your work very easy when you proceed and now um, start developing your action plan. So that is the only comment I can make today about the employee engagement, and say that uh, it is our responsibility as the HR personnel to take care of our employees. Employees are people, and our business within the organization is to deal with the human capital. So, in as far as we have seen how the responsibilities on employee engagement have been divided across, right from the management down to the employees, then the driver here is the HR personnel. And if the HR personnel you don't get it right, then your organization is not to also it's not going to have a fully well engaged employees. And the advantage of well or maybe a talent pool that is really engaged, it's the advantage of the HR department. You will realize that you have very less disciplinaries. You really have very less conversations about performance. In case it is recruitment, you don't struggle getting a good candidate. Yeah, so much of the advantages will come and make your work easier as the HR. So my challenge to you, colleagues and fellows, is that let's go back and get to evaluate and see where we are. If I was to ask in this conversation tonight, maybe we rate where we feel we are on that scale of 0 to 10 in our workplaces. I'm sure you'll be able to see different results. But now that tells us we have some actions to take. Thank you, Mr. Naftal, for putting this together, and we hope to see you coming through for the second session. Thank you, Greg. Back to you.
Well, thank you so much for bringing in the element of net promoter score, which is very, very important. And I believe that the team will actually dig deeper into that particular area of net promoter score. Tim, just to remind you, I had indicated that as under employee engagement as part one. We will have part two, and in part two, the person sharing will be sharing their current experiences at their workplace. I'm looking for Nessie from Mobati Rolling. She will be able to share exactly what they are doing as far as employee engagement is concerned. Maybe, Farren, you want to add something? I think it will be critical if you have something that you want to add. We don't lock you out. Farren, carry on.
Sorry, thank you, Greg. So you actually joined the session a bit late, so I'm just actually just catching up with what the team was sharing. But I think I'll probably add some inputs towards the topic on from the next session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it will just be good when you catch up in the next session just to let us know what happens at Coca-Cola. That will really be helpful. The bad, there are two questions, one from Leah and the one from Mr. Gay. I want to request that you pick them, and then we can be able to wind up. I believe you're able to see from both the private chat and the public chat. You can pick the one for Leah. Thank you.
Absolutely, Greg, and thank you so much. Leah, thank you for your question. Now, this is a very important question. How do you deal with or motivate the completely disengaged employees? Because of course their pessimism, if left unchecked, then that will often pull in the moderately disengaged, and I completely agree with you on this. Now, dealing with completely disengaged employees requires a very thoughtful and delicate approach, especially seeing that their negativity can influence the rest of the pack. Come up with a strategy. Ask yourself, what is the root cause? Identify the root cause of their complete disengagement. How do you do this? You can conduct a one-on-one meeting with them. You can gather feedback by using anonymous surveys. Anonymous surveys will work very well in this instance, which can provide insights into workplace dynamics that are affecting the engagement levels. Um, Check the communication. You can open communication channels. Perhaps the reason why these employees are completely disengaged is because the communication channels are muffled. You have not created a safe space for conversations or dialogue to happen. You can also encourage team building activities where these employees can feel free to talk, they can feel free to express themselves. Um, and you might benefit from information that might help you in working on how you can move them from the scale of disengagement to engagement. Um, Look at the job that they do. You might need to rethink or revisit clarity in terms of their work and especially their workload. Sometimes, disengagement comes from confusion about job expectations, and therefore clear role definitions and adjusted workloads can simply help you in mitigating this. um, I think those can be strategies that you can use to help you. You can also decide that if these steps are not working, you come up with an exit strategy, but this should be the last resort. If all interventions have failed, sometimes it might even be necessary to part ways completely with this employee, um, because prolonged disengagement often leads to a very toxic work environment and can affect eventually the team morale. I think I have answered you, Leah.
Thank you so much, Naftal. Spot on. Maybe the last one, you can take the one from Mr. Gay.
Mr. Ngei asks, sorry.
What do you do
Mr.
in a workplace? You're able to see
What
it?
do you do? What do you do in a workplace where the stakeholders or the owners do not embrace any suggestions from HR about employee engagement? This is a tricky one, I must agree. Um, Dealing with stakeholders or company owners who are resistant to HR initiatives or HR suggestions on employee engagement can be quite challenging. But you can come up with ways to circumvent this. Number one, I think you can understand the stakeholders' perspectives. Try to understand the stakeholders' perspectives. How do you do this? Identify their priorities, you know, ask for feedback, openly seek their inputs on why they are hesitant about your strategies, and this can definitely provide you with the right insights into what they are thinking or their mindset. One of the things that will work, and I challenge you to use this, would be building a business case with data. This is where analytics comes in. You need to utilize your knowledge in terms of data. Go ahead and quantify the impact of disengagement to the business leaders. You know, present data on how disengagement is affecting productivity, how it is affecting the turnover, etc. Demonstrate the dwindling returns on investments. Show them that activities that are cost effective can still improve employee engagement. You also have the backing of employees, and this is where the employee feedback is very important. We have talked about employee surveys. You can even highlight employee retention issues. If, for example, turnover is a problem, you can emphasize the connection between engagement and retention. Losing high performing employees, we all know, is a very expensive affair, and investing in engagement can easily mitigate this. I think those and many others that you can go and dig up will help you in trying to circumvent the resistance you may face from business owners or directors in the company. I hope I've answered you, Tommy.
Uh, Thank you so much, Mr. Naftal. You've literally addressed the issue pretty fine. And to me, that can be a problem where most business owners may not necessarily appreciate the value of engagement. And therefore, using some of the items our colleague has mentioned, you can be able to get help. I just want to, Naftal, you mentioned whether we can inbuild engagement into Ability HR. It is done. It's completely in. You can do your surveys. The beauty of it is that you can actually, once you've done a survey and you want to do a rerun, you can be able to make analysis based on the baseline survey that you did carry out, and therefore the system has addressed all the way to action plans, where action plans are assigned to the respective leaders and tracked in terms of closure. So we've covered that adequately in the system. I think in our next session, I will just be able to demonstrate that in our next session. Naftal, you covered in your paper, you talked about the role of HR, and I think that's a critical area to keep on looking at. And I liked the way you touched on the terms that we use commonly, that is engagement, satisfaction, and well-being, which and happiness, which means different things. And therefore, the need for us as a team, as a HR team, to look at the terms and know where to use them and what to do in terms of actions around each. Naftal, you have done well. I don't know what else I can say. You've surpassed my expectations. And one thing I know is that the more we prepare to share knowledge, the more we are challenged to become better. As you are sharing, I was thinking through and looking at some of the things I can actually implement and therefore become better. And so, Naftal, you've not only impacted the team, but you've also touched me. And I believe through the preparation, you've also been able to move to the next level at a personal level. To all those who have attended today's session, I want to sincerely thank you for sacrificing your time to be available for this very critical assignment. When you look at people like Richard Branson, they say that the first priority for them is engagement, then everything else fall in place. That in itself says where engagement lies in an organization. I want to give back to Nathan, who will then end the session. Nathan, thank you so much for the notes that you've captured. I believe we'll be making reference back to them and just taking note of the areas that we might have missed. And finally, from my side, Naftal, please don't stop here. Go further and become better. Thank you so much. Nathan, back to you.
Sorry, Greg, before we go to Nathan,
Sure.
I believe there are, I'm not sure, but there were meant to be some new faces in the group that, joined us out of the link being shared to them. And I hope they have gotten value from this presentation. I do not know if Joanne is here. Joanne and a lady called Grace McKenna. If you're here, thank you so much for joining on this presentation, and we hope to engage further going forward so that you get the value that you desire. Thank you. Nathan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting them, and you are most welcome to the sessions that are forthcoming. Feel free to join in so that you can then be able to grow with the rest. My final one is on Thursday. Let's meet, let's engage, let's connect on Thursday at Pride Inn. If you need any more information, please get in touch so that then we can be able to meet. Nathan, back to you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Naftal, for that session. It was actually very thought through presentation, and I actually loved it. Now that basically I'm trying to bank myself on stuff to do with engagement, so I'll say thank you so much on that. So we, as you know, guys, we have been having an engagement, a kind of an engagement thing that is going on. I hope you've been trying to see your secret Santas and trying to be able to reach out to them and give the gifts. Yeah, and I kindly ask you guys, as you're trying to do that, please don't do it just because we had said we are going to do it, but I kindly ask you to do it from a deeper understanding that you're trying to do something, you're trying to connect to someone that you don't know, because through that we get to find to form a family that is going to we don't know where it's going to take us, but possibly that's a greater point that is going to take us, because I believe with this community that Greg has begun, it's a very big community. So the main aim of the game was just to stay anonymous, but I kindly ask and I kindly urge you guys, you strive to be able to make it accomplish, because the more you're going to do that, I was talking to Greg I think yesterday, yeah, and then there is something that I understood more on this game. which myself I didn't understand, is that the more we push ourselves into making this thing being able to come to a reality, is how we can be able to get ourselves out of the comfort zone, and that's actually what it's aimed at. And we are planning an engagement that is next week and next month. So guys, I pray that we are going to show up. And generally I don't have much to say, but just to thank you a lot, Mr. Naftal, for your insight. Yeah, so Greg.
Thank you. Thank you. You are free to leave at your concession. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Naftal, the faculty members. Lovely.
Thank you, Tim. Have a lovely evening.